The following review contains significant plot spoilers. Please watch at your own risk. After making 2 disappointing Bond films, Roger Moore still needed to prove to the world that he was really here to stay as James Bond 007. So does the saying, third time the charm, apply here? Well, it most definitely does. The Spy Who Loved Me is the 10th official Bond film and was released in 1977, making it the longest gap between Bond films at the time, with a span of 3 years. The film opens with a different take of the Roger Moore gun barrel sequence that would be used in every future Moore Bond film. Why they did this I do not know, but I am sure that there is some explanation behind it. Regardless, it's not too relevant. After that, we get the usual pre-title sequence. This PTS gives us the start of the plot with British and Soviet submarines disappearing under mysterious circumstances. The PTS also gives us an incredible ski chase featuring James Bond. Yes, that's right. We haven't seen James Bond in the last 2 PTSs, but here he is. Also, the ending of it is just simply epic. Skiing off a cliff and using that Union flag parachute to escape safely. Just epic. If you aren't pumped up for this film yet, then we have a problem. After the PTS, we get the theme song Nobody Does It Better, sung by Carly Simon. This is the first Bond theme song that doesn't share its name with the film that it's in, which is kinda new. As for the song itself, it's okay. A little slow and different, but it's okay. After the song ends, Bond learns that the plans for a highly advanced submarine tracking system are on the market in Egypt. Bond travels there and meets Major Anya Amasova, codenamed Triple X of the KGB, played by Barbara Bach. She is the Bond girl of the film and sort of a rival to Bond at the same time as she is also after the plans. They reluctantly team up after their superiors call a truce. I should mention that Anya's superior is a man named General Gogol, played by Walter Gotell. If you remember, Gotell played a henchman in the second Bond film From Russia with Love. In this film, however, he plays a different character and is an ally to Bond. Anyways, Bond and Anya travel across Egypt trying to get the microfilm plans and run into the main henchman of the film along the way. This henchman's name happens to be Jaws, and he is a 7-foot behemoth with steel-capped teeth. He is also played by Richard Kiel, who is actually that tall in real life. When Bond fans talk about their most favorite henchman in the series, most of them mention Jaws. Eventually, Bond and Anya identify a man named Karl Stromberg as the person responsible behind all of this. Stromberg is the main villain of the film and is played by Kurt Jurgens. Bond and Anya go to Sardinia, where Stromberg is located, and start to show some affection towards each other. After seeing Stromberg's new supertanker, the Liparus, they are chased by henchmen after henchmen. They eventually escape when Bond drives his new car, the Lotus Esprit, into the ocean and shows Anya that it can transform into a submarine. Connery's car was the Aston Martin, and Moore's car was the Lotus Esprit. It's pretty cool how they gave Bond a different car based on the actor who was playing him at the time. Anyways, eventually Anya finds out that Bond had killed her lover in Austria, which was shown in the PTS. She promises Bond that she will kill him when their mission ends. The next day, Bond and Anya board an American submarine and examine Stromberg's underwater Atlantis base, but are captured by the Liparus and its crew. Stromberg shows up and announces that he plans to launch nuclear missiles from the captured submarines to destroy Moscow and New York City. This would trigger a global nuclear war, which Stromberg would survive in Atlantis, and subsequently create a new civilization under the water. Afterwards, he leaves for Atlantis, taking Anya with him. After a struggle, Bond frees the captured British, American, and Russian submarine crewmen, and together they battle the Liparus's crew. The big battle inside the tanker is absolutely incredible and is the definite highlight of the film. I would actually say that it's one of the top 5 action sequences that I have ever seen in cinema history. Eventually, Bond reprograms the British and Soviet submarines to destroy each other, saving the world from a nuclear war. Bond and the victorious crewmen escape the sinking Liparus on the American submarine. After this, the submarine gets orders to destroy Atlantis, but Bond insists on rescuing Anya. Bond goes there, confronts Stromberg, and shoots him multiple times, killing him in the process. Bond also runs into Jaws again and manages to drop him in the Stromberg's shark tank. Jaws, however, escapes and swims off, making him one of the few henchmen to survive a Bond film. This also wouldn't be the last we will see of this character. Bond saves Anya, and the two flee in one of Stromberg's escape pods as Atlantis gets blown to smithereens. Anya forgives Bond, and the two make love. The film ends on a funny note when Bond and Anya's superiors, M and General Gogol respectively, see the two in the pod making love, thus surprising them. Roger Moore has finally found himself more comfortable in the role as James Bond and gives a great performance. He plays the role more comedic than his last two while still having a hard edge, which I quite like. Kurt Jürgens plays Karl Stromberg, the villain of the film. He's basically a pissed-off old man with webbed hands that wants to create a world under the sea. That may sound cool, but the villain overall is fairly forgettable. That's one thing I noticed about the Roger Moore era. The villains, for the most part anyways, are lacking in creativity. Although not the worst villain, Stromberg is certainly not the best. M and Moneypenny return as usual, along with Q, who we get to see a bit more of. We get quite a few allies this time, including Admiral Hargreaves, General Gogol, and an American submarine captain who I can't remember the name. Even though he's slightly minor, I really enjoyed the submarine captain as an ally. The actor who played him also appeared in a few other Bond films, such as You Only Live Twice, although in very minor and brief roles. We get a few henchmen and even a henchwoman this time around. The henchwoman is Naomi, played by the very hot Caroline Munro. She serves as Stromberg's personal pilot and tries to gun down Bond in a helicopter in one scene. Unfortunately, she ends up dying by Bond's car missiles. The main henchman is, of course, Jaws, played by Richard Kiel. There's nothing much to say about him that hasn't already been said. He's famous for a reason. Personally, I wouldn't call him my favorite henchman in the series, but he's one of my favorites for sure. Our Bond girl this time is a Russian KGB agent named Anya Amasova, played by Barbara Bach. While she is certainly attractive, I don't really find Bach a great actress. Just with some of the delivery of her lines, they feel very unnatural. Many people rank Anya as one of the best Bond girls. I'm not in the same boat, unfortunately. Louis Gilbert returns to the Bond series to direct this one, having previously directed You Only Live Twice. He certainly does a great job of capturing the film and making it look as epic as ever. I should mention that the score of the film was composed by Marvin Hamlisch instead of John Barry. Hamlisch did a pretty good job with it, and I really like the disco-oriented Bond theme that plays in a few parts of the film. I found the plot and subplots of the film vastly interesting, with the chase for the microfilm, Bond's dilemma with Anya, and Stromberg's plans for world domination. I always enjoyed how this film brought back the elaborate and over-the-top sets, such as the Atlantis base and the Liparus interior, to make it feel like a classic Connery Bond film. I also really enjoyed a few little details here and there, like when Anya mentions that Bond once had a wife but she was killed. This proves to us that the Bond Roger Moore portrays is indeed the same Bond as his two predecessors were. The action scenes in this film are a much bigger improvement over the last few films, and some are truly breathtaking, like the opening ski chase and the grand battle inside the Liparus. There's also a really long chase involving motorcycles, cars, a helicopter, and even mini-subs, and it never seems to drag on at any time, because it is so exciting. The locations are also much better than the last few, with snowy mountains in Austria, blistering deserts in Egypt, and of course Sardinia, where all of the underwater stuff takes place. Now that I think of it, this film seems like the offspring of Thunderball and You Only Live Twice, and believe me, that's a good thing. This film is also the most serious Bond film since On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is a much needed change at this point. Unfortunately, this will not last long. After the terrible Diamonds Are Forever, disappointing Live and Let Die, and absolutely atrocious The Man with the Golden Gun, James Bond has finally re-established himself as a relevant icon. While there are a few things about this film that I don't particularly like, the positives vastly outnumber the negatives. This is Roger Moore's first classic Bond film, and a good one at that. I give The Spy Who Loved Me an exceptional 8 out of 10. Here are my 5 likes that I picked out for this film. Richard Kiel as Jaws makes an unforgettable henchman. The plot and underlying subplots are truly intriguing. The locations are all very beautiful. The film feels like a Connery Bond film with Roger Moore as Bond, and believe me, that's a good thing. Lastly, the action sequences are amazing and some of the best the series has to offer. It was hard to pick out 5 dislikes, but here they are. I don't really think that Barbara Bach is a great actress in this film. Karl Stromberg is a weak and mostly forgettable villain. Bond's red and yellow ski suit in the PTS looks pretty silly. The music that plays when Bond and Anya's van breaks down is pretty random and silly. And lastly, I wish that the Naomi character would have gotten a bit more screen time, since she looks absolutely stunning. Well, that's my review of The Spy Who Loved Me. Despite the end of the film saying that James Bond would return in For Your Eyes Only, that idea was postponed due to the success of a certain sci-fi film that came out at the time. Can anyone guess what film it was? Stay tuned for next week when we look at the Bond film that tried to cash in off the sci-fi craze. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.